coming soon to the single-family home.
I call to order the October 2nd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Please join me in the flag pledge. Do you have a copy of the agenda?
I do.
Sorry, I don't have one. All right. Ms. Goodroad, will you please take a call of roll for members?
Borovich,
Here.
Zimmer. Zimmer. Here. Ike.
Here.
Swenson. Zuzik. Here. Kaluza.
Here.
All right, agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes for September 19th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Fellow commissioners, any changes to the minutes?
No.
Okay, the minutes will stand. And then agenda item number 4, any announcements?
Good evening, Chair. This evening, you have handouts for agenda item 5A, the Crown Lakeville Apartments. Those are the motion from last night's Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Committee meeting. You also have a revised preliminary plat and site plan, which I will address during my presentation. And then, provided that none of these items are tabled, these applications will be brought forth to the October 21st City Council meeting.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 5, our public hearings. Anyone wishing to speak on a public hearing, please make sure you fill out the information in the back of the room. 5A, this is a public hearing for Crown LMN LLC. It's a preliminary plot of one lot to be known as Crown Lakeville Apartments. Number 2, a conditional use permit to allow the following in the RH2 multifamily residential district. 2A, construction of more than one principal residential building on one lot of record, and 2B, construction of multiple family residential buildings that are greater than 48 feet in height, and 2C, an exception to the exterior materials provisions. And here to give us an overview of their project is Bill Griffith. Nope, just kidding. Yes, it's a 6A. Sorry, I'm very out of sorts. These numbers.
Yeah, Commissioners, my name is Tom LaSalle with Crown. So I just wanted to start. First of all, thanks staff. Staff's worked very closely with us. This is a very challenging site. It's quite hilly. And consequently, some of the things that are before you tonight that we're asking you to consider. Bill Griffith is here. Bill will take you through what we're doing. And we also have with us tonight Emily Castanius, who will answer any engineering questions that you may have. So thank you for allowing us to come. Bill?
Grab my plan. Chair, Commissioners, my name is Bill Griffith. I'm representing the applicant in this matter. And as Mr. LaSalle said, challenging site. We've been working with the city staff for quite some time to refine the plans and get them to this place where they can be presented to you. We're pleased to say that the project complies with the city code in all regards, with the exception of the conditional use permit issues that are before you. The reason for that, I'm going to get right into that. The reason for the CUP, other than the fact that we have 2 buildings on one principal lot, so that's pretty typical for a multifamily project. But because of the hilly site, it's a 4-story, 2 buildings of 4 stories that is, sit atop underground parking. And when I say underground parking, it's underground parking in the main. But because of this very hilly site, it's not possible to bury some portions of each building. And so those buildings are exposed. But as you'll see in the plans, there's a very nice treatment of those exposed portions of the parking garage, including windows. So we can get into that detail, but I wanted to put that out in front of you, both the height of the building, because the way it's measured from the ground, and the building materials on the garage. That's the reason for the conditional use permit. So I wanted to put that out there right away. So the Crown developer is very excited to bring this project forward. It's 2 multifamily buildings, high-quality rental project, and it's really intended to serve a demand in the South Metro. Vacancy rates throughout the Twin Cities, but particularly in the South Metro, are low. There's demand for this product type. The sites are guided and zoned for high density, so we're not requesting any discretionary approvals. The conditional use permits operate somewhat as a traditional variance when you're looking to vary code standards. In this community, that's done, in this case, through a conditional use permit. So the 2 buildings sit next to each other. I don't know if there's a site plan that you can view while we're talking about this, but the 2 buildings sit adjacent to each other on top of underground parking, as I've said, and there's a very significant amenity and play area that is in between both buildings. I think we're going to go through, there we go. I don't know if there's we can put the plan up as I talk about it, or okay, well, I'm going to let you present. I'm going to give the overview, and I'll let you go through the details. There we go. Thank you very much. So as you can see, there's 2 buildings. Those buildings are on each end of the site. There's a significant wetland area which will be retained as open space. Trees will be retained in that portion of the property. And then this amenity area is situated between the 2 buildings. That's where we have a pool, splash pad, and a playground. In addition to the amenity areas, there's a trail connection on the south to the regional trail, and that trail connection will be linked to the sidewalks throughout the project. So there's nice pedestrian connections adjacent to the buildings that link that trail system, the sidewalks, the buildings, and the amenity areas. One of the things that we were discussing, the reason we were signing up right as the meeting started, is we were talking to our neighbors. And up on the top end of the site, the north end of the site, we've added a chain link fence between their property and the retaining walls. And that's both to provide separation, but also safety on top of that retaining wall. A couple other additions, we will dedicate right-of-way for expansion of the county road. So that's part of the platting request. So future improvements to 210th will be done via this right-of-way dedicated from the project. The key to this project really is working with the topography of the site. We spent a lot of time with staff positioning the buildings, discussing the garage and the addition of the underground parking and the exterior materials. So at this point, I will pause and see if there are any questions, and then, of course, let staff take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Well, Mr. Griffiths did a good job of giving you a quick overview of the project, so hopefully I can just add to that. As we've said, this is a preliminary plat and CUP for 3 separate items. We won't need to go through those again. As a reminder, this site is located north of 210th Street. I-35 is just off to the west here, or excuse me, the east. It's near Keokuk and Keswick Loop, right in this area. The Authentics project, which you may recall, is under construction here. And the property is zoned RH2, which is a multiple family residential district. Multifamily buildings of 4 stories are permitted use within that district. This is the updated preliminary plat for which you have in front of you. This was a last-minute change. The wetland area was previously within an outlot, so it's not a major change. The wetland area was previously within an outlot. We were running into issues with the floor area ratio. in subtracting out that wetland area, we were running into that 0.7 floor area ratio for the floor area of the buildings in relation to the lot. So engineering staff supported the change to a conservation easement over the wetland. So it will still be protected in the same manner. It just provides a little extra flexibility for the site. And then this is the updated site plan, again, taking out that outlot area that would have been in here and just showing it as it would be an easement. Otherwise, the site plan is unchanged. So just as to get you situated here, this is 210th Street here. This is Keswick Loop to the south. This is an access road that is currently constructed. It's a private access point. So the project will access 210th from here and then provide access into the buildings and the parking lot. There are the two buildings here. There are 3 garage entrances for these buildings. The east building has their entrance on the south side here. The west building has 2 underground garages. So there is one access on the south side, that's for the lower garage, and then another access up on the north end here, which is for the upper level of the garage. The east building has 94 units, the west has 88, so there's a total of 182 units. And of that, 128, 70% are the 2-bedroom, and the remainder are 1-bedroom units. The site does have 377 parking spaces between the garages and the surface spaces. The site does require 364 spaces, so it is in compliance with the required parking. There is enough spaces under each building to provide one enclosed parking space for each unit within the building, and that's one of the reasons a second level was added under that west building, was to provide those spaces. These darker lines that you see here are sidewalks to provide pedestrian access around the site. There is also a trail along 210th Street, so it does provide access out to the trail, to which folks can access the commercial area here to the east. The amenity area that Mr. Griffith referred to is in this area. Current plans show a pool, a splash pad, and a playground within a fenced area. There is also a small and fenced dog run area on the other side of this drive aisle here. And as I mentioned, that floor area ratio was just over the 0.7 threshold, but with this wetland area becoming a conservation easement instead of an outlot, the site is now in compliance. So stipulation number 8 can be removed from my recommendation because that has been addressed. Just to help illustrate the grading that is on this site, for reference, these elevation lines are sloping down to the wetland. These elevation lines are sloping up to the adjacent parcel, and these are sloping up as well. So this building here is not sitting up on top of a hill. It is kind of sitting down lower. So from the side, it does not look quite as tall as one would imagine. And this is also higher on the south end, looking down where this accesses the site. The area in red is the tree area that will be removed to accommodate the development of the site. The trees to remain are all within the wetland area. There would be 4.6% of the trees on the site remaining for that. This is the landscape plan. Trees around the site, you can see in these areas, there's a significant tree area here between the street and the site to help provide some additional buffering. And then there are some foundation plantings and then plantings within the parking lot islands as well. This is the east building. It's a little tough to tell, breaks down the materials. Each of the buildings, when you go from the ground, the ground level up, meets the 50% exterior materials requirement, which is at least 50% brick, stone, and so the east building, yes, is 52%. Once you add in the rock face block for the garage area, that is when it does, the brick percentage does dip just below the 50%. I believe it's 47%. And as a reminder, we do not count windows and doors as a part of these calculations. When the applicant brought the revised plans to us quite some time ago to propose the idea of a second underground garage for the west building, they did raise the issue and point out that they would then be below that 50% threshold. And we, staff and the developer discussed whether we could be able to support a CUP for an exception to those exterior materials. And we felt that the additional garage space to provide that with the building was a reasonable request to grant to support the CUP to the exceptions to the exterior materials. This is just exterior color view of rendering of the building. This is the east building. This would be the amenity area on site. This is the west view of that building. The amenity area is over here. The underground parking of the east building, it does extend out further north than the floor plan of the building itself, but there is enough parking here for one for each unit. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. And there is just a sample floor plan. I believe this is the first floor, just to give you an idea of the general layout. There is a large patio area here. And then this is the west building, same situation. Again, the elevation drops down to provide the access to that garage, which is what brings it below that 50% threshold. The height on these buildings, because we measure building height from the average grade, not at where the ground level and not at its lowest point, we take the average grade. The buildings do exceed the 48 feet that is listed in the RH2 district. If we did the measurements from the first ground floor level, both buildings would meet that 48-foot height. So it is the topography on the site that is what is pushing it over. We have seen that with a few other buildings as well, multifamily buildings. The building also includes a parapet up at the top. It is taller than 3 feet, so we can't exclude it from the height measurements. Otherwise, it would be considered slightly shorter. But again, staff is supportive of that height given the topography on the site. Again, these are just some exterior elevations of that west building. The underground garage space for that building, the lower one enters from the south end and the upper one enters from the northeast side here. And then just the floor plan, typical 1 and 2 bedrooms. That is all I have for you this evening. Staff does recommend approval of the Crown Lakeville Apartments preliminary plat and CUP, subject to the 7 stipulations listed in the planning report. As a reminder, stipulation 8 has been satisfied and can be removed from the recommendation. This is a public hearing, and I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. All right, and seeing as this is a public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on this agenda item can come forward.
Evening.
Hello.
My name is Colleen Powell. I live at 11774 205th Street West. My property abuts theirs on their north side. I have talked to the developer and the owner before coming in, so they let me know about the chain link fence, but I'm requesting a black chain link fence. We have townhouses owned and rented on our east property. We also have single-parent homes on our single property. We now have authentics on our single property, which is affordable housing. Unbeknownst to most people, that at Christmas time, when people seem to move, and as soon as school's out in June, we get a lot of dogs and cats that we assume people have let go because they don't want to take care of them anymore. And that is why I'm requesting a full-length fence on our north property line, because it kind of deters the animals from coming through. I also wanted people to know we have 10 coyotes in my area that roam around in little packs. So I don't know if you knew that there was that many in that area. They ruined half my speech talking to me before. I just, little history. The property that they bought, my father sold about 1969, 1970, right after County Road 70 came in. He sold that 10 acres for $10,000. That's how much property has gone up in this area. That's just unbelievable. Just want to please consider my request for a full-length fence on the north property line. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this agenda item?
Just a couple of questions based on the drawings shown. So I'm Chris Powell. I actually live on the property, 11770 205th Street West, which they own, their son. And so I'm in the property just north of what we're talking about here. And saw one blip of the tree trimmings that was over on the right side that looked like it was higher than the rest. I'm assuming that all the trees coming down are all the trees coming down are on their property, across their property line. I guess as a question if they are or not.
Okay.
And then second question is the elevation change was on the drawing as well. So from the edge of the building where it goes uphill to the north, I'm just wondering how much elevation change there is, and if there's any plan for a retaining wall or not. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this agenda item?
Madam Chair, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? All right, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, do we want to address the trees and the elevation and the retaining wall first? If we can pull up the tree picture.
As far as the retaining wall question goes, are you referring to the? Yes. For the north property line, if we're looking at the highest point over here, that is 09, and then down the building is 11. This building here is 1112. So this is technically slightly lower than the building here, and grades continue to slope down. This right here is a retaining wall between this parking lot and then if we're looking at this side as well, there is a retaining wall. And right here between these high grades and the building that's down here, and that's a larger drop. This is actually between the building and up here, like 3 feet lower than this. But along the retaining wall, about 1110, and the bottom here is 5. So this north retaining 5 to 6 feet deep at its highest.
Hold it right there. I was Just wondering what that is.
Um,
Or is it just the shade of the tree that's highlighted?
I think that is just the shade of the tree. I can't read it off of this plan.
The tiny printing says tree off-site.
Okay, so it looks like that, my guess is that, not my guess, the tree there is probably right on the property line, so when you're looking at removals, to get the full root zone, it would go slightly off-site to remove the full tree.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Sorry about that. The tree is right on the property line, so the full root zone, to remove the whole tree and the affected roots, that would cause that slight off-site impact there.
If you were clearing trees so it sounds like all the way up to and on the property line?
Correct. All the way up to the property line.
Ms. Castanis? The folks that had asked some questions about the trees being cut down and then the elevation issue. So this retaining wall is higher than the building, lower than, can you be a little bit more specific about what that
Yes.
is?
It depends on which side you are looking at. On this north side, the retaining wall is high and the ground beyond the building is low. So the building down to the north side is lower.
So the residents on the other side will see this retaining wall, or they will see the building, or they will see both?
Both on the north side. On the west side, the wall is lower. So you would be looking high on the west side, looking down towards the building.
I hope that was helpful.
Chair, Commissioners, one of the things I discussed with the developer, in that location where that tree might be removed, that would only be done with the permission of the landowner. If they withhold permission or don't want any impact to their site, that would have to be, that tree would have to be protected and avoided. So we don't have the legal right to do anything on their property, and we would not do so. So I just want to be clear about that. And then in terms of the replacement, for any trees removed, there's a 2-to-1 replacement requirement under city code.
And then are you able to address the ask for the fence to be the full length?
Thank you for raising that. Again, the developer spoke with the property owners before the meeting, agreed to extend the fence the full length of that northerly property line, and I'm sure black is a fine color for doing that. So yes, that will be provided. And we'll work with them. We want to make sure that they know when construction is starting, they know what potential impacts may be. Again, if it's desirable to both property owners to remove the tree that's on the property line, we'll work with them to do that. If it's desirable to retain the tree, it will be retained.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I appreciate your willingness to work with the neighbors. I just had one other question for you. Are these all market rate units?
They are.
Thank you.
Yes. And there's, they're a generous size. One of the issues with the floor area ratio is, and we appreciated staff's willingness to work with us on that. We didn't want to lose the square footage within those units because they're more desirable. So the fact that staff was able to accept a conservation easement in lieu of an outlot, that really helped that issue be resolved. So, and retain the square footage within the units.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Osell, you had said that the vacancy rates in the South Metro are high. Is there can you give us the difference between South Metro and specifically Lakeville?
I don't have the Lakeville numbers. I know from working on a project in another southern suburb that generally in the South Metro, the vacancy rates are 2 to 2.5%. That is low. That means that there's a demand for units. And we know there's a national housing crisis, but here in the Twin Cities, vacancy rates are generally low, but in the South Metro, they're lower than in other parts of the Twin Cities.
Thank you.
So we're helping to meet a demand and doing so within the guidance of your comprehensive plan.
Fellow commissioners, any additional questions or comments?
I wanted to ask Planner Jensen a question. Planning Manager Jensen. The correct title. This location is, we're doing the infill with different sites. I read through things, but did the schools weigh in and all that kind of stuff on what we usually do for the influx of folks? And I know we're having a conservation easement and there's a trail connection. And they have what looks like a small playground. What's the closest playground and like walking area for dogs with this development?
As far as playground, I don't think that there's a public park. There will eventually be to the north of 205th as a part of the Ritter Meadows. There is a community or a neighborhood park that will eventually be constructed within that neighborhood. As for where, folks can walk their dogs, the trail does connect over to Keokuk, which would lead into the commercial areas as well. So, they can either do around the building on the site or use the trail along 70 to get out and about.
I know it's not a requirement, but just that we've got another, now it would be an influx with 182 units as far as school. So where would these kids go to school?
I'm not sure which elementary school they would be zoned for.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for engineering. Residents often have questions about roads, and with County Road 70 here, if you could kind of tell us what I know it's a county road, does the county have plans as far as access? Like, will you be able to cross County Road 70 on Keswick Loop, or, is the county eventually going to restrict access into this development?
They do not have current plans to restrict access. They have planned this out to be a common access to remain open with that, for lack of a better term, that frontage road that was constructed to the east that's now continuing west.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Swenson, did you have a question?
My questions have been answered.
All right. Any additional comments or questions? I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I motion to recommend approval of the Crown Lakeville Apartments preliminary plat and conditional use permit, subject to the 7 stipulations listed in the September 24th, 2024 planning report.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Mrs. Goodroad, will you please take a roll call vote?
Zuzik?
Aye.
Kaluza?
Aye.
Morovich?
Aye.
Zimmer?
Aye.
Inc?
Aye.
And Swenson.
Aye.
All right, and when will this agenda item go in front of City Council?
We're looking at the October 21st meeting.
All right. All right, yeah, thank you, and best of luck on your project. All right, agenda item number 5B. This is LPDC LLC for a preliminary plat of one industrial lot to be known as Lakeville 35 Logistics Center North Addition, and 2, a conditional use permit to allow a warehouse use in the OP Office Park District. And here to give a brief overview of that project is Ed Farr.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and staff. My name is Ed Farr, Edward Farr Architects, representing the developer, Likewise Partners. With me tonight is Mark Nordland, representing Likewise Partners, as well as our civil engineer, Eric Miller from Sambatech. They'll be available for questions, as will I, after this. I just really wanted to say hello and add a couple things to our application. We did, based on the response in the staff report, add some more boulevard trees along Juniper Way. County Road 70 is depicted in this colored site plan here, but the official plans are being resubmitted by the civil engineer, so we are complying with that one condition. We also are agreeing to all the other conditions in the staff report. Lastly, there's one minor change that happened just a few days ago. In lieu of the enclosed exterior trash enclosures that we have in the loading dock for dumpsters that tenants can use, we're going to insist that all the tenants actually store their trash and recyclables inside the building, and the trash haulers will pick them out during evening hours. So we won't have any exterior trash enclosures. Otherwise, we'll stand open for questions, and we're happy to be here and appreciate the positive staff report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. This request from this applicant and developer is for the construction of a 190,000 square foot warehouse building. This requires a preliminary plat of this property and a conditional use permit for a warehouse building located within a OP Office Park District. This property is located immediately west of Lakeville South High School in the athletic fields. It's located north of County Road 70, which in this curved stretch of the county highway, it's Juniper Way, otherwise 215th Street down here and 210th Street up here as it crosses Kensington. So this is a roughly 39 acre property. It was divided by County Road 70 in the mid 70s when the county acquired this right of way and constructed the County Road 70. The property to the north is Trinity Lutheran Church. The church also owns this parcel to their south. And then the school, high school is to the west. And then to the south is the other roughly half of this property. And to the west is additional office park property. The zoning of the property, again, is OP District, which is all of this in the purple. You can see that that's the zoning of the property on clear out to Kenrick Avenue, south of Juniper Way, and up to 210th Street, with the exception of the church property, which is zoned medium density residential. This is a copy of the survey, the property survey, which shows the portion of the property that's being preliminary platted into a lot. There's a wetland that's identified up in this corner here. Otherwise, it's a moderately sloped property, and this is the south half of the property, which would be platted into an outlot. So back to the north property, this is the warehouse building. It's roughly 190,000 square feet, parking along the front, fronting County Road 70, and parking along the west. Access to the property will be from a full turning movement access at County Road 70 to the loading dock area. There is a row of pavement for semi-trailer parking to service the warehouse. There'll be a loop drive around the entire property, which will also provide fire access, the emergency vehicle access, and then most of the truck traffic will be coming in and out of this location. Originally, a proposal was to have the access come out to 15th Street, roughly in this area, where 215th Street accesses County Road 70, and the street was going to come up along the west boundary. When Dakota County Plat Commission had reviewed this request, their determination was that the long-term viability for I can find this here, for access location at this corner, given the curve, they determined was less than ideal, potentially unsafe with the high speeds, and they directed the full access to be located at this upper corner here, which would then also eventually provide full access when this area is developed to County Road 70. This would potentially then in the future be restricted as determined by the county, perhaps for right in, right out, left turns from westbound County Road 70. Let's see here. This is the grading plan. This represents a downward slope from the building area down to the east property line. There'll be a stormwater pond system. They'll be located in the northwest corner of the site, and then get some moderate slopes going to the west and north. The proposed building is tip-up concrete panel, smooth finish, painted, white primarily, gray, blue accents. The building is what's referred to as a spec building, speculative tenant, and at this point there are a number of accesses that are proposed in the building. It could be one user, could be four, could be more, but ultimately the property is primarily a warehouse, constructed as a warehouse structure, common that we see along County Road 70 in recent years. So this building height and building material and building color all meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. This is another overview of different perspectives. I did mention in my planning report that the lighting plan had not been submitted. This is a copy of the lighting plan. I don't expect you to be able to read these points of light that are identified, but it does meet the requirements of maximum intensity of 1 foot candle or less at the property line. The lighting fixtures are these 35-foot tall poles, LED lights, downcast type lighting, designed not to have upward glare. So there's a couple stipulations. I did speak with the landscape architect. They are going to submit a revised landscape plan to have a row of deciduous trees along the road frontage that would be in compliance with our zoning requirements. I did identify it in this highlight that it would be submitted. I would recommend that it remain as a stipulation. The site lighting plan has been submitted. Stipulation 9 could be modified because we want to still include the requirement that the lighting plan comply with zoning ordinance. And then, yeah, I'll conclude there are findings of fact that are required for the conditional use permit. I will stand for questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this agenda item can come forward.
Madam Chair, not seeing anyone coming forward, I would move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the public hearing is now closed. Fellow commissioners, any questions or comments?
I have a question for the applicant. When we have large warehouses like this, we used to have a former planning commissioner that would ask this question, so I will ask it in his absence. With the number of loading dock spaces, the number of entrances, are you planning on having those numbered in some way to assist our first responders if they need to respond here, or will that be up to whoever your tenants are going to be?
Good question. I did contact the building official and the fire department about that, and they do prefer suite numbers, so it'll share one building address. I believe it's 21300 Juniper Way, but there would be suite 100, suite 200, 300, 400, and we would use those major 100 numbers, not knowing exactly how many tenants there would be. If someone ends up being another suite between those, it would be 150 or 250, something like that.
And would that be the same for the loading dock, bay 1, 2, 3, or?
Yes, some tenants like to have their own numbering system. They may say dock A, dock B, dock C. Depending upon who the user is, we may decide to number them 1 through 18 or whatever there is on the back of the building for the tenants above the door.
Great.
We don't know yet.
I appreciate you talking to the fire department about that.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
Okay. No additional questions. Looks like we might be ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to recommend approval of Lakeville 35 Logistics Center North Addition preliminary plat and conditional use permit subject to the 10 stipulations listed in the September 2024 planning report.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Mrs. Goodrow, will you please take a roll call vote?
Thank you. We'll start with Mavrovich.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I'm butchering these names tonight. Zimmer,
Aye.
Enk,
Aye.
Tinsley, nope, Swanson,
Aye.
Zuzik,
Aye.
and Kaluza.
Aye.
All right, and when will this one go in front of City Council?
October 19th as well.
Best of luck in your project, and thank you. And that will bring the meeting to a close. Never